20.2 Sources or Causes of Economic Inequality. Economic inequality arises from a wide variety of factors. The five key ones are human capital, discrimination, financial and physical capital, entrepreneurial ability, personal and family characteristics. Human capital is the accumulated skill and knowledge of human beings. To see how human capital differences affect economic inequality, we will study an economy with two levels of human capital: high skilled labor and low skilled labor. Low skilled labor might be law clerks, hospital order lines, or bank tellers, and high skilled labor might be attorneys, surgeons, or bank CEOs. The demand for high skilled labor and low skilled labor. High skilled workers can perform tasks that low skilled workers would perform badly or couldn't even perform at all. Imagine an untrained person doing surgery or piloting an airplane. High skilled workers have a higher value of marginal product than low skilled workers do. The firm's demand for labor curve is derived from and is the same as the firm's value of marginal product of labor curve. Figure shows the demand curve for high skilled and low skilled labor at any given employment level. Firms are willing to pay a high wage rate or a high skilled worker than a low skilled worker. The gap between the two wage rates measures the value of the marginal product of skill. For example, at an employment level of 2,000 hours, firms are willing to pay a high skilled worker $25 an hour and low skilled worker only $10 an hour, a difference of $15 an hour. Thus, the marginal product of skill is $15 an hour. DL is the demand curve for low skilled labor and DH is the demand curve for high skilled labor. The vertical distance between these two curves is the value of marginal product of skill. The supply of high skilled and low skilled labor. A skill is costly to acquire and its opportunity cost includes expenditures such as tuition and low earnings while the skill is being acquired. When a person goes to school full time, that cost is the total earnings foregone. When a person acquires a skill through on-the-job training, he or she earns a lower wage rate than someone who is doing a comparable job but not undergoing training. In this case, the cost of acquiring the skill is equal to the wage paid to a person not being trained minus the wage paid to a person being trained. Because skills are costly to acquire, a high-skilled person is not willing to work for the same wage that a low-skilled person is willing to accept. Position of the supply curve is of high-skilled worker reflects the cost of acquiring the skill. The high-skilled worker's supply curve lies above the low-skilled worker's supply curve. The vertical distance between the two supply curve is the compensation that a high-skilled worker requires for the cost of acquiring the skill. For example, suppose that the quantity of low-skilled labor supplied is 2,000 hours at a wage rate of $10 an hour. This wage rate compensates the low-skilled workers mainly for their time on their job. Consider next the supply of high-skilled workers. To induce high-skilled labor to supply 2,000 hours, firms pay a wage rate of $17 an hour. This wage rate for high-skilled labor must be compensated not only for the time on the job, but also for the time and other cost of acquiring the skill. The wage rate of high-skilled and low-skilled labor. Figure shows the demand curve and supply curve of high-skilled and low-skilled labor. Equilibrium occurs in the market for low-skilled labor where the supply and demand curve for low-skilled labor intersect. The equilibrium wage rate is $10 an hour and the quantity of low-skilled labor employed is 2,000 hours. Equilibrium in the market for high-skilled workers occurs where the supply and demand curve for high-skilled workers intersect. The equilibrium wage rate is $20 an hour and the quantity of high-skilled labor employed is 3,000 hours. In the figure, the equilibrium wage rate of high-skilled labor is higher than that of low-skilled labor. There are two reasons why this occurs. First, high-skilled labor has a higher value of marginal product than does low-skilled labor. So at a given wage rate, the quantity of high-skilled labor demanded exceeds that of low-skilled labor. Second, skills are costly to acquire, so at a given wage rate, the quantity of high-skilled labor supplied is less than the low-skilled labor. The wage differential, in this case $10 an hour, depends on both the value of marginal product of skill and the cost of acquiring it. The higher the value of marginal product of skill, the larger is the vertical distance between the demand curve. The higher the value of marginal product of skill and the more costly it is to acquire, the larger is the differences between high skilled and low skilled workers. Education and on-the-job training enable people to acquire skills and more up through the income distribution, but education is the most important contributor to a higher income. Discrimination. Persistent earning differences exist between women and men and among the races. It might exist, but economists cannot isolate and measure the effects of discrimination. So we can't say by how much or even whether earnings differences arises from this source. To see the difficulty in isolating the effects of discrimination, consider the market for investment advisors. Suppose that black women and white men are equally good at providing investment advice. If there is no race and sex discrimination, average rates are the same for both groups. But if some people are willing to pay more for the investment advice from a white man than they are willing to pay for the same advice from a black woman, the market determined value of marginal product of black women is lower than that from white men. The result is a lower equilibrium wage rate or fewer high paying jobs for low black women than for white men. For discrimination to work in this way and bring persistent wage differences, people must be persistently willing to pay more than necessary for investment advice. People will begin to notice that they can get a better deal if they buy investment advice from black women. Substitution away from low cost white men towards high cost white men towards lower cost black women will shift demand and eventually eliminate differences. Financial and physical capital. The people with the highest incomes are usually those who own larger amount of financial capital and physical capital. These people receive incomes in the form of interest and dividend payments and from capital gains, increases in the stock market value. A small portion of society, usually the owners of capital, control an ever increasing fraction of the economy. The income gap between workers who earn by their skills and owners who earn by investing in capital has widened. Entrepreneurial ability. Some of the most spectacular rich people such as have benefited from unusual entrepreneurial talent. Household names such as Bill Gates, Microsoft, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, Google, and Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook are examples of people who began life with modest amounts of wealth and modest incomes and through a combination of hard work, good luck, and outstanding entrepreneurship have become extremely rich. But some very poor people have also tried their hands at being entrepreneurs. We don't hear much about these people, but they have put together a business plan, borrowed heavily, and through a combination of hard work, bad luck, and in some cases, poor decisions have become extremely poor. Personal and family characteristics. Each individual's personal and financial or family characteristics play a crucial role for either influencing good or economic well-being. People who are exceptionally good looking and talented with stable and creative families enjoy huge advantages over the average person. Many movie stars, entertainers, and extraordinarily talented athletes are in this category. These people enjoy some of the highest incomes because their personal or family characteristics makes the value of marginal product their labor very large. Adverse personal circumstances such as chronic physical or mental illness, drug abuse, or an unstable home life possibly arising from the absence of a parent or from an abusive or negligent parent place a huge burden on the many people and result in low incomes and even poverty. A weak physical or mental health makes it difficult to study and obtain a skill and results in a low labor income and no income because the job is just too hard to hold down. And the children of poorest people find it hard to get into college or university and so find it difficult to break the cycle of poverty.